The desire to isolate oneself can feel mysterious, even misunderstood by many. Yet, this urge is deeply rooted in both human nature and the animal kingdom. The solitary behavior of the wild cat, choosing to live on the fringes, far from social interaction, offers a powerful metaphor for understanding this human emotional state. In this text, we will explore this connection, revealing what the instinct to withdraw truly says about our inner world. In everyday life, this emotional state manifests in various ways. For some, it's the introverted nature that finds comfort in solitude rather than large social gatherings. For others, it may be a reaction to burnout, anxiety, or a difficult period where social energy is depleted. The world's demands, constant communication, expectations to be always on, and sensory overload, can push individuals toward a craving for quiet and distance. This state is not about rejecting people but about seeking a space to breathe and recharge. Consider the artist who retreats to a cabin in the woods to escape distractions and reconnect with their creativity. Or the professional who needs to step back from noisy offices and social meetings to regain clarity and focus. These examples illustrate how the emotional state behind isolation is a natural, even necessary, phase of self-care and introspection. On a deeper level, this emotional condition is tied to the human brain's need to regulate stress and process experiences. The mind requires moments of calm to integrate emotions, reflect, and heal. When overwhelmed, the brain signals for retreat as a way to prevent further distress. This biological imperative is often misunderstood as loneliness or depression, but it can instead be a healthy boundary-setting behavior. Moreover, the emotional state linked to isolation often includes feelings of vulnerability and a heightened sensitivity to external influences. People in this state may feel easily drained by social interactions, perceiving them as intrusive or exhausting. They may prefer the safety of solitude, where they can control their environment and be true to themselves without external pressures. This emotional pattern can also be seen in cultural and personal differences. Some societies value solitude and reflection as essential for spiritual growth and mental balance, while others prioritize social connectivity. Within individuals, the balance between socializing and withdrawing shifts depending on personality, life circumstances, and emotional health. Importantly, the desire for isolation does not mean a permanent rejection of relationships or community. Instead, it can be a temporary but vital phase where one pauses to protect their emotional core. Like a battery needing recharge, humans require time alone to replenish their emotional resources before re-engaging with the world. Understanding this emotional state helps break the stigma around isolation. It encourages compassion for those who seek solitude and recognition that withdrawing is sometimes the healthiest choice. In fact, ignoring this need can lead to burnout, anxiety, or deeper emotional distress. In the vast tapestry of nature, the wild cat stands out as a symbol of independence, stealth, and the deliberate choice to live on the margins of society. Unlike their domestic cousins, wild cats navigate a life dictated by instinct and survival, choosing solitude over social bonds. Their behavior is a vivid reflection of the human emotional state that craves isolation, embodying the will to protect oneself by maintaining distance from others. Wild cats are solitary hunters, relying on their keen senses and patience to thrive. They inhabit dense forests, rugged mountains, and remote areas where human presence is minimal. This preference for secluded habitats speaks volumes about their nature. They avoid confrontation and large groups, instead opting for an existence where they can control their environment and maintain a low profile. In this way, their habitat choice mirrors the human tendency to seek quiet places where emotional energy can be conserved and threats minimized. The wild cat's day-to-day life revolves around a delicate balance of vigilance and retreat. Their sharp eyes scan the surroundings for both prey and potential dangers, yet much of their time is spent resting alone, hidden beneath foliage or rocks. This combination of alertness and withdrawal is a survival strategy that reduces exposure to risk while conserving energy. Similarly, humans experiencing the urge to isolate often oscillate between moments of cautious awareness and the comfort found in solitude. Socially, wild cats are known for their territorial behavior. They fiercely defend their territory, marking it with scents and vocalizations to warn off intruders. This boundary setting is crucial for their survival and mirrors the human emotional need to establish personal space, both physical and psychological. When overwhelmed or threatened, the wild cat does not seek confrontation but rather increases its distance, signaling a desire to be left alone. This parallels the human behavior of withdrawing when emotional limits are reached. Curiously, wild cats do engage in social interactions during mating seasons or between mothers and their kittens, but these moments are brief and purposeful. Once independence is achieved, the young cats disperse to establish their own solitary territories. This pattern reflects the selective nature of social connections in those who value isolation, not a rejection of all relationships, but a careful, deliberate choice about when and with whom to engage. The wild cat's nocturnal habits add another layer to their symbolism. Operating mostly under the cover of darkness, they navigate the world on their own terms, avoiding the harsh exposure of daylight and the social bustle that comes with it. This nocturnal lifestyle can be seen as a metaphor for the hidden emotional lives of isolated individuals, deep, complex, and often unseen by the wider world. Their silence in the dark echoes the quiet contemplation and self-reflection that solitude affords humans. Biologically, wild cats possess heightened senses, acute hearing, sharp vision, and a refined sense of smell, that allow them to detect subtle changes in their environment. These traits enable them to avoid danger and hunt effectively without the support of a group. For humans, this heightened sensitivity can translate into a profound awareness of social dynamics and emotional cues, which sometimes leads to overstimulation and the subsequent need to retreat. The wild cat also demonstrates remarkable adaptability. When conditions change, be it food scarcity, threats from predators, or environmental shifts, they adjust their behavior, relocating or altering hunting strategies. This resilience is a powerful reminder that the urge to isolate is not static but fluid, responding to internal and external pressures in order to maintain balance and survival. In summary, the wild cat embodies the essence of solitary strength, vigilance, and boundary setting. Its natural behaviors offer a mirror to the human emotional state of wanting to live on the edge, away from overwhelming social interactions. Understanding this animal's life helps us appreciate the instinctive wisdom behind the human desire for solitude, not as a failure to connect, but as a vital strategy to preserve and protect the self. The thread that connects human emotional isolation and the solitary life of the wild cat runs deep, weaving together instinct, survival, and the quest for peace. At first glance, a person retreating from social contact and a wild cat slipping quietly through the shadows might seem worlds apart. Yet, beneath the surface, their behaviors share a remarkable kinship, a silent dialogue between human psychology and animal instinct. Both humans and wild cats are wired to protect their vulnerability. For the wild cat, this means retreating into the dense underbrush or rocky outcrops where danger is less likely to reach them. For humans, it often means withdrawing from the noise of social expectations and emotional demands. This retreat is not a sign of failure or weakness but a deliberate act of self-preservation, an instinctual safeguard that keeps the core self intact. Imagine the wild cat's cautious steps, each one measured, deliberate, avoiding unnecessary exposure. This mirrors the emotional carefulness of a person who has learned through experience that too much interaction can leave them drained or exposed. Both use their solitude as a shield, creating a buffer zone that allows them to rest, heal, and regain strength. It is as if they share an unspoken understanding, peace often lies in distance. The wild cat's territorial boundaries resonate deeply with human emotional boundaries. Just as the cat marks its space to keep intruders away, individuals who crave solitude set invisible limits around their mental and emotional space. When these boundaries are breached, whether by overwhelming demands, misunderstandings, or forced socializing, the response can be swift withdrawal or even hostility. This instinctive protection of personal space is a universal language of self-respect and survival. Metaphorically, the wild cat's preference for the fringes. The edges of forests or mountains, reflects the human desire to live, on the margins, socially. Many who seek isolation do not reject connection entirely, rather, they prefer relationships that respect their pace and space, much like the wild cat tolerates only brief, purposeful interactions. They choose their company carefully, valuing depth and authenticity over quantity or superficiality. Furthermore, the wild cat's nocturnal rhythm draws a powerful analogy to the hidden emotional worlds of isolated humans. Just as the cat prowls under the cover of darkness, avoiding the glare of day, isolated individuals often navigate their feelings and thoughts in private. Their emotional lives, rich and complex, unfold away from the spotlight, quietly processing, reflecting, and recharging in solitude. The analogy extends to heightened sensitivity. Wild cats' acute senses make them highly responsive to subtle environmental cues, allowing them to avoid danger and detect opportunities. Similarly, people who prefer solitude often have a heightened awareness of social dynamics and emotional undercurrents. This sensitivity can be both a gift and a burden, making social interactions more intense, sometimes overwhelming, and thus reinforcing the desire to retreat. This shared pattern of behavior, alertness combined with withdrawal, boundary setting, selective interaction, and a preference for the margins, speaks to a common evolutionary strategy. It is a dance between connection and protection, between engagement and retreat, shaped by the need to survive and thrive. Ultimately, the connection between human isolation and the wild cat's solitary nature invites us to view solitude not as loneliness or deficiency, but as a profound, instinctual state that serves a vital purpose. It teaches us that choosing distance can be an act of courage and wisdom, a way to honor our limits and nurture our inner world. Understanding the striking parallels between human emotional isolation and the solitary lifestyle of the wild cat requires a journey into the science of behavior, both human psychology and animal biology. Beneath the surface of these instinctive actions lie evolutionary imperatives and neurological mechanisms that drive survival, emotional regulation, and social interaction. From a biological standpoint, wild cats embody survival strategies honed by millions of years of evolution. Their solitary nature is an adaptive trait shaped to optimize resource use and reduce conflict. By living alone and defending territories, wild cats minimize competition for food and mating opportunities, increasing their chances of survival. This territoriality and preference for solitude have clear parallels in human emotional behavior, where setting personal boundaries preserves psychological resources and reduces social stress. Humans, too, have evolved mechanisms to balance social connection with the need for solitude. The brain's limbic system, especially the amygdala, plays a crucial role in processing emotions and social cues. When overwhelmed by social stimuli, such as crowded environments, intense interactions, or emotional conflict, the amygdala can trigger a stress response, prompting a withdrawal instinct. This fight, flight, or freeze reaction is deeply ingrained and, for many, choosing solitude is the safest flight option. Research in social neuroscience confirms that solitude activates parts of the brain associated with self-reflection and emotional regulation. The default mode network, DMN, a network of brain regions active when the mind is at rest, supports introspection, memory consolidation, and emotional processing. When people seek solitude, they engage the DMN, allowing them to process complex feelings and restore emotional balance. This scientific insight helps explain why isolation can feel restorative rather than purely negative. On the animal side, the wild cat's sensory adaptations illustrate the biological underpinnings of solitary behavior. Their enhanced hearing, vision, and smell serve as early warning systems, crucial for avoiding predators and competitors. This heightened sensitivity to environmental cues parallels the human tendency toward emotional hypervigilance, where sensitive individuals perceive subtle social signals more intensely. Such sensitivity often leads to sensory overload in social settings, increasing the appeal of solitude as a coping mechanism. Ethologists, scientists who study animal behavior, have documented that solitary species like wild cats develop complex behaviors to maintain social distance without unnecessary aggression. Vocalizations, scent marking, and body language act as communication tools to prevent conflict. Similarly, humans use verbal and nonverbal cues to establish emotional boundaries, signaling their need for space without confrontation. Moreover, attachment theory in psychology sheds light on the varying human needs for social connection and solitude. Early life experiences influence how individuals form attachments and manage closeness. Those with insecure attachment styles may develop a stronger preference for emotional distance as a protective mechanism, mirroring the wild cat's instinct to maintain safe distances. This theory integrates emotional history with instinctive behavior, deepening our understanding of solitude as a nuanced and multifaceted state. Scientific studies also highlight the health benefits and risks of solitude. Moderate solitude promotes creativity, problem-solving, and emotional resilience by providing space for self-reflection. However, chronic social isolation can lead to negative outcomes, including increased risk of depression, anxiety, and even physical health issues. This delicate balance reflects the wild cat's adaptive strategy. Solitude is beneficial when chosen and controlled but harmful when forced or excessive. Finally, the interplay of genetics and environment shapes both human and animal behavior. Just as wild cats' solitary instincts are influenced by their genetic makeup and ecological conditions, human tendencies toward isolation are shaped by a combination of inherited traits and life experiences. This dynamic interaction explains why some individuals naturally gravitate toward solitude while others thrive in constant social engagement. In summary, the scientific explanations for the connection between human isolation and the wild cat's solitary behavior reveal a rich tapestry of evolutionary, neurological, and psychological factors. These insights not only validate the instinctive nature of solitude but also invite us to approach our own need for distance with compassion and curiosity. To truly grasp the interplay between human emotional isolation and the wild cat's instinctive behaviors, it helps to step into the shoes of real people living these experiences. Their stories illuminate how solitude is not just an abstract concept but a living, breathing reality that shapes everyday life in profound ways. Consider Sarah, a graphic designer working in a bustling city office. Despite her outward sociability, Sarah often finds herself withdrawing after long interactions. She prefers to eat lunch alone, sitting by a window with a view of the quiet park across the street. Like a wild cat choosing the safety of dense foliage, Sarah seeks out pockets of solitude amidst the urban chaos. Her coworkers sometimes mistake her quietness for aloofness, but for Sarah, these moments alone are vital to recharge her emotional energy and maintain her creative flow. Then there is Michael, a software developer who grew up in a large, loud family. As an adult, he gravitates toward small social circles and often declines invitations to large gatherings. Michael's behavior mirrors the wild cat's territorial instincts. He has defined clear emotional boundaries and prefers interactions that respect his need for space. When overwhelmed, he retreats to his home, where he feels secure, much like a wild cat retreating to its den after a long hunt. His solitude is not a sign of social failure but a deliberate, healthy choice to preserve his well-being. In another example, we find Emma, a university student who struggles with social anxiety. Her isolation is more than a preference, it's a protective shield against the unpredictability of social environments. Emma's heightened sensitivity to social cues resembles the wild cat's acute senses. She often feels overwhelmed by noise, crowds, and unexpected interactions, leading her to seek refuge in quiet corners of the campus library. Like the cat that prowls under the cover of darkness, Emma's emotional world is rich and vibrant but mostly hidden from view, revealed only to those she trusts. Not all examples stem from preference, some come from life circumstances that force isolation. Take James, a remote worker who recently moved to a new city without knowing anyone. The absence of familiar social connections makes him feel vulnerable, echoing the wild cat's cautious approach to unfamiliar territory. James spends much time observing from a distance before gradually engaging with neighbors and colleagues, much like a wild cat slowly exploring new terrain to establish a safe territory. His journey highlights how solitude can be both a challenge and a necessary stage in building trust and connection. These stories also reveal the subtle ways people communicate their need for solitude. Sarah uses headphones as a "do not disturb" signal, Michael politely declines extra shifts to protect his downtime, Emma avoids eye contact in crowded places, and James carefully chooses social events he feels comfortable attending. These behaviors function like the wild cat scent markings and vocal signals, nonverbal ways to set boundaries and prevent unwanted intrusion. Another compelling case is Maya, an artist who thrives in solitude but deeply values meaningful relationships. Maya's life demonstrates the delicate balance between isolation and connection. She spends days immersed in her studio, creating in quiet contemplation, yet cherishes deep conversations with a select few friends. Her pattern reflects the wild cat's selective social nature, engaging only when it feels safe and worthwhile. Maya's story shows that solitude and social connection are not opposites but complementary forces that together nourish the soul. In workplaces, too, the wild cat analogy is clear. Employees who prefer working independently often produce their best results in quiet environments free from constant interruptions. Just as a wild cat hunts alone with focused attention, these individuals excel when allowed space to think deeply and act autonomously. Recognizing and respecting this need can improve productivity and workplace well-being. Through these examples, it becomes clear that solitude is a multifaceted state, sometimes chosen, sometimes imposed, sometimes restorative, sometimes challenging. Like the wild cat, humans navigate a complex emotional landscape, balancing the need for connection with the instinct for self-preservation. These behaviors are not flaws to be fixed but natural expressions of an inner truth. Understanding these real-life parallels encourages empathy and self-awareness. It invites us to see those who seek solitude not as distant or difficult but as individuals honoring their instinctual needs. In the final chapter, we will reflect on what these insights teach us about embracing solitude with grace and using it as a pathway to deeper self-knowledge and well-being. One of the most important lessons is that solitude, like the wild cat's solitary life, is a natural response, not a flaw or failure. In a society that often glorifies constant connection, extroversion, and busyness, choosing solitude can be misunderstood or stigmatized. Yet, it is precisely this instinct to retreat, recharge, and protect emotional boundaries that sustains mental health and nurtures creativity. Recognizing this helps us honor our own needs and respect others' choices without judgment. Moreover, solitude offers a sacred space for introspection and healing. Just as the wild cat retreats to a safe den to rest and regenerate, humans benefit from periods of quiet reflection to process emotions, clarify values, and rediscover inner strength. This intentional withdrawal is not about escaping reality but about preparing to re-engage with the world from a place of balance and resilience. Embracing solitude also encourages us to cultivate deeper self-knowledge. When distractions fall away, the mind can explore its hidden corners, confront fears, and unlock creativity. Solitude can reveal not only who we are but who we wish to become. This inner dialogue fosters authenticity and empowers us to live more intentionally. Yet, it is equally important to acknowledge that solitude is not an end in itself but part of a dynamic equilibrium between connection and independence. The wild cat's life teaches us the value of boundaries, knowing when to engage and when to withdraw, how to protect our emotional territory without closing ourselves off completely. Learning this balance prevents isolation from becoming loneliness and transforms solitude into a nourishing practice. For those who find social interaction challenging, understanding these instincts can reduce feelings of shame or confusion. It reminds us that needing space is a valid human experience rooted in biology and psychology, not a personal deficiency. This insight fosters compassion toward ourselves and others who navigate their social worlds differently. On a broader scale, embracing the wisdom of solitude can inspire changes in how communities and workplaces support diverse emotional needs. Creating environments that respect individual rhythms. Allowing for quiet spaces, flexible social engagement, and acknowledgement of introverted tendencies, enhances collective well-being. This cultural shift can reduce burnout, increase creativity, and improve mental health. Finally, reflecting on the wild cat's life invites us to reconsider the relationship between humans and nature. Our instincts connect us to the animal kingdom in fundamental ways, reminding us that beneath layers of culture and technology, we share ancient survival strategies. Reconnecting with these instincts through mindfulness, nature experiences, or simply honoring our need for solitude can ground us in a deeper sense of belonging. In conclusion, solitude is a powerful teacher. It invites us to listen closely to our inner world, respect our boundaries, and honor our natural rhythms. By understanding the wild cat's example, we can approach solitude with kindness, curiosity, and courage. This journey transforms solitude from a source of isolation into a wellspring of strength and insight. What might happen if we allowed ourselves to embrace solitude not as a retreat from life, but as an essential part of living it fully? Solitude is not emptiness but a rich, essential space where we reconnect with ourselves. Like the wild cat, embracing our instinct to withdraw can bring strength, clarity, and peace. As you reflect on your own need for solitude, ask yourself, how can honoring this inner space deepen my understanding of who I am, and transform the way I live? Solitude invites us to pause, listen, and grow.